Welcome back to Counterculture, Pastor Mark. How's that,
Pastor Andy?
Dramatic pause, right? Listen, we talk about things that are counterculture.
Hence the name.
Right, things
Counterculture.
But we're not just talking counterculture, our world. We're talking counterculture even in the church, right?
Right.
So we talk about Ecclesiastes chapter 3 all the time. We use it frequently. We use it.
I haven't talked about it lately.
We talk about it. You haven't done a funeral lately, then, where you've needed it, right? We talk about time. We talk about there's a time for everything.
If I could put time in a bottle.
Right. We're gonna get sooner rather than later. Trash Ministries is going to bring to you Singing with Mark. It's going to be fantastic. What you guys don't know is that frequently down here, Mark breaks into song with everything, and so it'll be really fun. We're gonna name a word and see what song he comes up with. It's gonna be good. You can look forward to that coming soon. So, Mark, we go to Ecclesiastes chapter 3.
I don't remember agreeing to that.
Ecclesiastes.
Okay. It's not time for it.
There's a time. It's coming soon.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, super familiar. It talks about a time to be born, time to die, time to all these things, right? But what I love about this little section is the part...
I thought of a song.
But you did.
Okay.
Right? I want you to come up with a song for this.
Okay.
Look at verse 9. So we skip all those times, right? And we get to verse 9, 10, and so on. It says this. What gain has the worker from his toil? Now, that's not where I was going with this whole thing, but I got stuck right there, right now, right? We look at our culture today. What a relevant question, right? I think Christians are asking this all the time, right? Mm-hmm. What good does it do to try to live a godly life in our culture today, right? Seemingly, even within our churches, it's not making a difference, right? Godliness has been replaced with godlessness all over the place, right? And when I say godlessness, I'm not talking about blatant evil, that's there, but I'm talking about going from godly to good. I'm talking about we have become a church, we've become people that are focused on, well, let's just do good things. It hurts less, takes less time, doesn't involve as much resources. All of these things, right? And we can still feel good about it, Pastor Mark. We can still feel good about the things that we do, and we don't have to cross that line into conviction and into repentance and into what does God really want us to do. There's no sacrifices, there's no all of those kind of things. So when you look at that and we say, the person comes up to you and says, Pastor Mark, I appreciate what you're doing, I appreciate what you're telling me, I appreciate who you are, I appreciate that you believe all these things, but what good is all of this work in the Christian life doing? What would your response be to those people?
Well, sometimes, and I've learned this as a pastor, I don't know the good that it's always doing. I have been there where I'm like, God, why am I doing this? Why am I preparing this message? Why am I getting up there? Why am I getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the hospital for this thing when it's not going to make a difference? Why am I preaching these things? Why am I, sometimes I feel like a cruise director on a ship. I'm here just to make sure you're comfortable, and I'll be honest with you, I'm getting more and more like, I ain't Julie on the Love Boat, baby. I ain't, sorry. I ain't Yeoman Purser, Gopher, whatever his name was. Okay, I just dated myself. That's all right.
I thought the Love Boat thing
great show.
was...
I love that. I loved it. Anyway, we don't know what's going on underneath the soil. I'm seeing now, we're in late summer. It's the middle of August, and my garden is producing. But there were some plants I had that I'm like, this was a waste putting these in. And now all of a sudden it's their timing. So let's go back to your timing issue. Let's go back to your timing issue. This is of the Lord. This is of the Lord. Because I've got some stuff now that I really thought, okay, well, I'll be pulling those out. And I almost pulled them out. And I'm like this close to missing out on some really beautiful stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, oh... That's the stuff, Andy, that keeps me going. Is there's seeds that I'm planting And then there's other seeds that I planted this year that didn't come up at all.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, we live in Western New York. You know, we live on everything's there's rocks everywhere. It's like you're in Ireland or something. You know? and yet somehow, you know, it's always cracks me up when I see a tree growing out of the side of a rocky, you know, side when they blasted through there. They got it's like a tree, and I can't get something to grow in a little bit of soil. I'm like, what is going on here? I don't have to understand it. My job is to sow the seeds and to do the work of what He's told me to do.
Yeah.
And even, you know, I talked in one of my shows this morning, recording, and you know, the farmer goes out and he's planting a seed. That's all he can do. He can't make it grow.
Yeah.
God makes it grow.
Yep.
Our job is to plant the seed or to water it, whatever God's asked us to do, and we let him have the rest in His timing, because we don't know. Some of those seeds just sit dormant. They just sit dormant, and then all of a sudden it's like, where'd that come from? I planted that 2 years ago, and all of a sudden it's coming up. It's like, what happened here? You know.
I love the imagery because it takes you back to the parable of the sower, and I always love that story because, you know, the idea is that if you're a good farmer, what are you doing sowing on the rocky ground? And in that, like, you just wouldn't sow there. Like, people don't understand that story.
And you got to sow. You got to be deliberate. Get your rows straight, everything else. And he's just there's this. Ooh, I'm going to come up with a new prodigality.
Ooh, see, these words.
Why do prodigality?
When I use a big word, it's because I've made it up. When you use a good word, big word, it's because it's a real word.
Is it a real word?
I'm sure.
I don't know. It's a prodigality.
We
always talk about the prodigal son, but he was the prodigal father too, the loving father. He was like very wasteful. That word prodigal means extravagant, wasteful. He's like, you know, he was very wasteful with his love, and I mean, he hocked up his drawers and he took off across the city. That was a very shameful act of his because of his son.
Yeah.
He was very wasteful of his reputation and everything else. And so there's this prodigality that the sower just, let's just throw it. Let's see where it goes. Let's see what happens here. And there's a freedom to that. There's a freedom that says, you know what, toss that seed. And we could argue it's not my job to worry about what happens to it. I do sometimes, like, well, what if the seed doesn't? It's like, ain't your problem, man. Just sow the seed and sow it where I want you to. Do what I've asked you to do today. Let me worry about the results.
Yeah, what we're so focused in on, you know, I mean, Paul makes it clear, but Jesus made it clear. We plant, we water, we harvest. God makes the growth. Yeah. Right. God brings brings the increase, and I think that's super important. Right. That is we're encouraging Christians, you know, to go. This is becoming harder and harder and harder. It used to be that was kind of cut and dry, and they're like, hey, live a good life, and look what's going to happen. Right. Yeah. Or hey, it's just all about heaven. Yeah. Right. Well, now we live in a culture that has convinced most of us that everybody's going to heaven. Yeah. So once you convince people that they're all going to heaven, what's the point of living a good, godly life?
Yeah, and my understanding is, and as I've read through these last years, that is one of the questions that people say, well, fine, because we focus on, well, you get to go to heaven. But people say, what just difference does Jesus make in my life now? And you know, that's something I'm trying to focus on. It's so funny because I get to that. I've never really paid attention to that word. What does the worker gain from his toil? And there's been so many times as my wife lets me vent, and yes, your pastor vents, by the way. Not just this one, whoever your pastor is, they vent to somebody, and they have these feelings, okay? We're going to go to me. I don't know how many times, God, I'm just done. Yep. I'm done. I'm tired of just, I invest. I'm just done. And here's what I see. This usually happens on my deck. I have a 39-foot long deck, and I pray out there.
So now people are going to say that about, like, wait, you're a pastor. You can't have a 39-foot
I know.
deck.
Now I'm just carnal.
I know. It's all you're in deep trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Well, someone built it for me. So, and you know what? It's used for prayer. There's been more work done on that deck than anywhere in my
God
church.
didn't say you can't have a 39.
He didn't say it because you should have gone bigger, man. But I only wanted like a little bitty deck, and like, no, Pastor, we got to do the whole back of the house. So, it's like it looks like a barge. But anyway, and it's funny because when I've been out there, and I'm like railing, God, just no one's listening and nothing's happened, and I'm just done. And I can almost see in my mind's eye Jesus sitting on the swing, just swinging. Oh, interesting. Yeah, got it. Yeah, interesting.
Could you hurry up the process?
Yeah.
Could you be done sooner?
And I'm like, yes. Are you done? because now we got work to do. Let's go. Let's go. You know, get
Oh,
back.
that is so Elijah.
And how many times I said, I'm not taking another call from them. Not doing it. As soon, and my wife said, yeah, you will. And she says, yeah, you will. As soon as the phone rings and it's that person, you're going to be on it.
That's right.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Yeah. The phone
only
rings, the text
one
comes.
left.
All right, meet me. I'll meet you there. Yeah, I'll help you.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I love that.
and that's so. But you know what? It's okay to do that.
It is.
It is okay to do that.
It's funny because in the story when Elijah does that, right? He finally comes out of the cave and he just repeats to God the very thing he said that went into the cave, and God doesn't even respond to it.
Yeah. So,
You know, like, you get that whole idea, like, are you done yet, Elijah?
Yeah,
Because if
yeah.
you're done,
Here's
I've got
something
stuff
to
to
eat.
do, right?
Here's a maple fritter.
That's right.
A cup of coffee. Go take a nap.
Yes. If you,
And then we're gonna get back to business. Here.
yeah, could you just go do what I need you to do now?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you done?
I
You done with your whining?
We serve a great God, right? So what gain has the worker from his toil, right? The answer to that is we're not always sure.
We're not always sure. And
You know?
sometimes he does let us see it, and it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes we are the harvesters.
Oh, look at that.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
You just alluded to next week's topic. So you just gave yourself the clue to next week's topic. So we're going to wrap up counterculture. We're going to come right back here and actually do what I wanted to do, maybe. There's another verse in between where I wanted to get to, so we may not even get to where I wanted to get to. But we've clued in Pastor Mark. We'll see what a little bit of preparation does for him in the next week. Catch you next time, counterculture.